12 o'clock on your Thursday afternoon. Welcome in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Terry Ford along with you here on the game. Let's work our way towards the weekend. Another matchup for South Carolina. Akron Zips coming to town as the Gamecocks look to improve to 3-1 on the season. Terry, I think it's funny. I was thinking about this a little bit earlier. What a difference a week makes in terms of like hype and build for one game compared to the next. Because, man, this time last week, we're talking about game day, and we're talking about, a nationally televised game on ABC and LSU, this big brand coming to town, Brian Kelly and Nussmeier and Harold Perkins and all these big names. And then we fast forward to this week, and we're I don't want to say grasping at straws, but we're trying to find the interesting angles of this Akron team that's just not very good.
Wait. Game day's not coming back for Akron?
Game day is not coming back for Akron. I hate to break it to you. SEC Nation's not going to be here for Akron. You'll be lucky if there's a podcast broadcasting live, somewhere in the parking lot during the game.
So wait a minute, you're telling me this isn't the national game this Saturday night?
We are going to be the biggest pregame thing happening at the party lot at Sound and Images.
That's terrible. I mean, great. So I meant to say
that's great for us.
Great,
but we don't have much competition this weekend.
You don't get McAfee and Saban and Reese and Kirk and Desmond. You get Terry and Tyler.
Adam Vance, he'll be out there.
Adam Vance will be there. We'll have some good food.
Yeah. We're gonna have a great time.
Oh, we'll have fun. We have fun every time we do these.
Your South Carolina's game is not appointment television.
No,
you're going to be going head-to-head with Oklahoma and Tennessee in the Heupel Bowl. Mm-hmm. I don't think a lot of eyes are going to be on what Carolina's going to do Saturday night, which is a good thing. If you go out there and handle your business, nobody talks about it, and you get into a dogfight, then people are saying, what's wrong with South Carolina? So hopefully you go out there and handle your business, and this game doesn't get talked about.
Okay, so you and I just went over that, right?
Yeah.
Went over the whole spiel about this week compared to last week.
Yes.
You think that the coaching staff across the street at South Carolina has thought the same thing you and I just talked about, and we can't let our players go to sleep this week because all the hype is gone. The hype train left.
1,000%.
Hype train took off like the Dr. Pepper hype train.
Yep.
It left. You're playing a team that by any metric is not very good. You and I looked at this today. The Billy Connolly SP Plus Analytic Index, the rankings, has Akron, I believe, the 128th ranked team in the country. How many are there? They're on 133.
134.
Correct? 134.
Our buddy Ryan McGee has wrote about them every single week in his bottom 10 column in college football.
They're bad. They're very, 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 very bad. But you know who else was looked at as very bad to start the season? Old Dominion. And by the way, Old Dominion has won as many games as you and I.
That is correct.
So far.
You don't want to be a team that plays up to good competition and plays down to bad competition. Because when you look at what South Carolina's done this year, we thought Carolina, they should be able to handle Old Dominion by a couple scores. One-score game coming down to the wire there in the fourth quarter. Kentucky, who we thought coming away from that game was pretty bad. Well, they just took Georgia to the limit this past weekend. Mm-hmm. They're actually pretty good, it turns out. South Carolina handles the business against them. And, again, if a couple things go differently, penalties, Sellers doesn't get hurt, you probably beat what is a very good LSU team this past weekend. So you just want to have the idea of, okay, this team knows how to go out there and handle their business when they're supposed to.
And you hope you learn from the Old Dominion game. And again, it was first game of the year, and you haven't hit anybody in anger that's not your own players, and I get all that. But you don't want to do what you did against Old Dominion or what you did against Jacksonville State last year. You want to go out, punch them very hard right in the face, get their attention, run them over, stay healthy, have everybody on the sideline play. Coaches, players, anybody wants to get in the game. Adam Vance, hey, want to play? Whatever. And you walk off the field with a nice, easy victory to where you feel really good going into the gauntlet that's coming.
By the way, our guy, famously Garnet, informs me Garcia and DeMarco actually going to be doing their podcast live at Gamecock Park for the game. A little bit of a downgrade from game day, but still.
Hey, you're always waiting. What's Garcia going to say?
Well, see, they don't have to worry about being on TV, so he can say whatever he wants.
Exactly. So he can kind of let it loose. And so you as a football program, you as a coaching staff, understand that all the hype is left, and now you're playing a team that you should skull kick. You don't want to let down this week.
No.
It's the last thing you want to do. and again, you can, as a coaching staff, do everything you can to prevent it. You can show cut-ups of Old Dominion the first week when you guys didn't handle your business correctly. You can show 5 plays where Akron actually does something. Let me talk about the running back at Akron, whose name escapes me. Almost half his yardage this year was on one run. But his stats look pretty good because he had a 76 or 73-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, Jordan Simmons, former MSU guy, had 109 against Rutgers, but yeah, the bulk of that was that 73-yard touchdown run.
So the guy's got about 44% of his rushing yardage this year on one run, and the rest of it combined is 3.5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
But if you're Shane Beamer,
you're just showing that one long touchdown.
I'm showing that bust to the house, right? And that's just what you got to do everything you can. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to the players and the locker room and the leadership within the locker room to say, look, we ain't messing around this week.
And I do wonder about that because, and look, these players have all said the right things this week. The coaches have all said the right things. None of them are going to take to the microphone and say, yeah, this team sucks. We're going to go out there and beat them by 40 points. But and especially in today's world with all this information that we use for our job, we look at statistics. Hey, they're 101st in this, they're 130th in that. Like, you can't help but see that across the board where this team stacks up to everybody else in college football. And whether you want to admit it or not, that is something that's always going to be in your mind. When you go out there on the field, like, yeah, we're already better than these guys. Like, we don't have to go out there and do anything special to beat them.
And I'm sure Shane is going to show, you know, in the opener, they hung with Ohio State for 2.5 quarters or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's Ohio State we're talking about. So you're going to try to use that too, but you're right. And that's why I say the leadership in your locker room's really got to set a tone this week of, hey, I don't care if it's Akron. We got to go play our best football, and that's what we need to do. We worry about us. We go play the best we can, and we should handle our business.
Yes.
But if we let down, if we put the ball on the ground 3 or 4 times, if we turn the ball over a lot, if we give up special teams plays, if we keep this squad in the game, that's not what we want to do because then we put ourselves in a pretty precarious situation.
And I think there is a motivating factor, too. Again, the nation's not paying attention to what you're doing this weekend, but that's kind of one of those games that if things are going sideways and people see it on the bottom ticker, they'll be like, oh, hey, Akron's making a game against South Carolina. Let me go flip over there and see what's happening, you know, in the fourth quarter or whatever. You gained a lot of respect from people for that game against LSU. And most of the nation agrees that, hey, the calls didn't go your way, and if they did, you probably win that game. So people are thinking pretty highly of South Carolina right now that maybe wouldn't have a couple of weeks ago. So don't go out there and, you know, barely scrape by with a 3-point win against Akron because people are like, oh, well, maybe I overvalued South Carolina, and, you know, they're back to being whatever they are now.
Ride your momentum. Look, you beat Kentucky. You whooped Kentucky.
Kentucky's senseless.
Matter of fact, you left your woodshed sitting outside of Kroger Field to remind them of the whooping that they took.
And then you took a hot iron and branded them on the way out.
Yes. And so then that team scared the bejesus out of Georgia, and Georgia only won by a point.
And what are people coming away from saying that? Was like, man, maybe South Carolina's better than we thought.
Exactly. Then you play an LSU team that had a really tight one-score game against Southern Cal, and now you really should have beaten them. So how good do you feel about you right now? You should feel good about you. And look, you played the clunky first game, but you survived it with a win because you made plays to get that W.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got to get past you should have won the game. Basically, you got to use that now as a positive. Not a negative anymore. It's got to be a positive that we, in our minds, we outplayed those dudes. We should be 3-0.
Yeah.
You take that with you forward. You step on Akron like a lit cigarette butt. And now you have 3 games coming. You got Ole Miss. You got Bama on the road. You got Oklahoma on the road. Not in that order. I'm just saying them. You got 3 of these games. And honestly, Ole Miss will be tough because they're #1 in the country in offensive efficiency. Jackson Dart has thrown for more yards than any quarterback in the country. They're very explosive on offense. Alabama's in Tuscaloosa, and Alabama's top 10 in efficiency on offense and defense. Those are 2 tough ones. But you know what? You've shown you can play with people.
Yep.
That's what you've shown now. You've shown you can hang toe-to-toe and play. Then you go to Norman, Oklahoma against a team with a rebuilt offensive line and a young quarterback right now. 1 minute looks pretty good and the next minute looks pretty bleh. But they have a good defense. You could be in a low-scoring slobber knocker in Norman.
Yeah.
So you come out of this 3-1, and now you kind of look at these games different. Yeah, look, Ole Miss is going to be favored. Bama's going to be favored. Oklahoma's going to be favored. But now you don't just sit and go, well, I got no chance. You don't feel that way anymore. And you feel better about going to play Oklahoma.
Right.
Because they're not looking like anything special. So right now you feel pretty good. Even though you lost that game, inside the old heart, where the heart muscle is, you feel like you're 3-0. And you feel really good about yourself right now.
Definitely.
And so moving forward, the last thing you want to do is trip over your body parts against Akron.
Which I don't think they will.
I don't either. I don't either.
If you can avoid self-inflicted wounds, and there is a problem with ball security. They are tied for last in the nation with Auburn in the amount of times they put the ball on the ground with fumbles. Fortunately, you've not lost all those fumbles. You only lost 3 of them.
6 of the 9.
6 of the 9, which is insane.
That is insane.
The ball has bounced South Carolina's way favorably a couple of different times, but that's not going to last. If you keep doing it, the chances of the other team picking up that ball are going to continue to go up. So you got to. This weekend is about cleaning up those mistakes, figuring out, okay, here's where we're struggling, here's what we need to get better with, and if nothing else, building confidence in those areas going into this tough slate of games after the bye week.
If you get it cleaned up, you get some of those things out of your game that you're dealing with. Maybe get better on first down, get better on your third down conversions, can protect the football. And if you can start to feel better about the things you've got to improve upon, then you feel good coming out of this game. And obviously health is also always the big concern. We will hear from Dow Loggins coming up next. Dow was in a talkative mood this week. Last week, not so much. This week, Dow got into it a bit more.
I think they interrupted his film session last week, and that's why he was bothered.
Yeah. Dow was not. Dow was not Dow last week.
He was not.
We love him because he tells stories. It's very interesting. He'll give you some behind the curtain stuff.
So sometimes I feel like he almost tells you too much, and he has to kind of like catch himself.
Right.
Because if not, he'll break out the whiteboard and he'll start scheming some things up for you.
But last week, Dow wasn't really in the mood. This week, Dow was more Dow. So we're going to get back in the next segment here. Dow Loggins talking about how he builds an offensive script, which I think is kind of interesting. We're busy today here on the game. 3 to 6 post-game show will be at CHW Cabinetry in Lexington on 2 Notch. I think it's 1819 2 Notch. So the post-game show will be at CHW Cabinetry. It'll be not only Jay Phillips and Elijah Kimball, but their special guest, Jen Jensen, will also be hanging out there at CHW. They did Jen's cabinets. So Jen will be there to hang out as well. While that's going on, some schmo named Terry Ford will be out at Hardee's on Veterans Road in Columbia. I just remind you about what we're doing with Hardee's with the Roundup program. We're basically, wherever you buy at Hardee's, let's say it's $8.08. Round it up to $9. That 92 cents will go to a good cause, the Harvest Hope Food Bank for Students. So we got that going on at Hardee's in Columbia, and we're also rolling at CHW Cabinetry in Lexington. A busy day. 3 to 6 here on the game. Dow Loggins next. How do you build an offensive script, Dow? Give us the what's up. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head till 3 on the game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game as we roll till 3 o'clock. There will be a couple different places. Post-game show live at CHW Cabinetry in Lexington, and we'll also be hanging at Hardee's on Veterans Road to, again, remind you of a really good cause, the Hardee's Roundup that will go to benefit kids, getting them lunches through the Harvest Hope Food Bank for students. All right, so Dow Loggins, talking to the media yesterday, he was discussing the building of an offensive script. We get into this all the time about these scripts today. And it just depends. 10, 15, 20 plays. The NFL, a lot of it's 15 to 20 plays. In college, 10 to 15. It just depends on each offensive coordinator and, their comfort level and their system of offense. So here's Dow Loggins talking about building the offensive script.
Oh, I mean, Kentucky. The first two drives in Kentucky, we kind of stalled, then we go down and score the second one, I think. It's really there's different things you look at, and you're looking at how you're attacking the defense, like what you're playing for the quarterback, how do you settle some guys down, and there's so much that goes into it. It's like, hey, do you want to get Lenoir's hit early so he gets those jitters out? Does he need to get a completion? Does Josh Simon need to touch the ball early in the process? How many carries does Rocket need in the first quarter? If it's a big movement team or blitz team, or like, hey, what runs or do you want to start efficiently? Our goal was to have more efficient runs. Like we'd had some big runs in the Kentucky game and did some really good things, but it was like we need to be more efficient. So that's going to help our third down as you stay out of those 3rd and 7s and 9s, and you all of a sudden get 3rd and 3 and 3rd and 4 and 3rd and 6. And you're playing more efficiently. So you're looking at all of it, and it's not just one thing. It's not just, hey, I want to run this pass. Like, yeah, sure. It's like, hey, how does he feel about this? How many times did he see it? It's also talking to Lenoir. It's like, hey, what are you comfortable with? What do you want to start with? And that for some of these young kids, they don't know what they don't know. But if they believe it's a good play, it is a good play. If they have confidence in it, it is. So you're talking to everyone. You're talking to the coaching staff as well. Like, hey, what do you guys feel starting this thing? And everyone's got ideas and thoughts. It's not just me sitting in my house by myself and like, hey, here's our openers. Here's our first 15. Here we go. We come in and we meet on it and we talk about it. And the offensive line coaches and with Coach Teasley and those guys and Sean Elliott and Black, they rank their top runs and they give us their top runs. And then myself and Shula and Furry and the pass game Ryan Yurchek, then we go on there and we give our passes and we mix them and we kind of come up with a plan that way. So there's a lot that goes into it, not just, hey, these are the best plays. And sometimes it's how it looked in practice. Sometimes as a coach, there's some intuition of like, hey, we didn't execute this play right, or we didn't get a scout team to give the perfect look, but we know how they're going to play. And sometimes it's a sell job to the players of saying, hey, and it's going back sometimes looking at how do they open the game? What is their percentage of blitz or coverage? And then the openers really start to say, okay, are they playing the way they thought they were going to play? LSU, they rolled it. The first series was all cover one. Second, it was blitz zone. And also, it was like a Rolodex of defense stuff that he hadn't shown since Missouri in the first two games. So there was a lot of credit. We didn't do what we needed to do to win the football game, but there was a lot of positive on that tape and guys adjusting and taking that the series right before Lenoir's hit the long run. They were doing some different stuff, and we caught them in a look where we knew it was going to be a good play before the ball was snapped, the way they lined up. We didn't know it was going to be a 75-yard touchdown, but we felt really good about making that adjustment and adding that play in right there. And there's just things that came up in the game that, our players handled some adjustments really well.
That's an answer of a guy in a good mood.
Yeah, he was feeling himself yesterday, that's for sure.
That's a great answer, isn't it?
It is.
That's what I like about Loggins. So we can say what we want about what you think of an offensive coordinator, roughly a little bit over a year into his tenure. But I like that answer because he's telling you, look, this just isn't, okay, let's pick a bunch of plays we like. There's so much that goes into this. There's, nuances of, okay, coaching staff, what do you guys like from this week to attack this defense? What did you like this week when you saw practice?
It's a feeling out process, and the best play callers are able to take what they learn through those first 10, 12, 15 plays, whatever it may be, because ideally you're going to get as many looks as possible against that opposing defense, saying, okay, here's the 4 or 5 plays that work the best. What can we do to build off of that? Because you have an entire playbook where you take that one base play and branch it out into however many different plays you have there to hopefully lead you to more success as the game goes along. And the defense is kind of doing the same thing where they're trying different things based on what you're lining up and saying, okay, here's what we think they're going to do in those first couple plays. How do we match that? And then you build from there. Like it's the ultimate way of how you describe football as a chess match.
Yep.
Because it's one guy on one side. using his pieces and moving them around to try and best the guy on the other side. And that's the beauty of the sport at the end of the day.
And that is the thing. It's fun. And when you hear Dallas say, we put this play in and we got the look and bam. Now, Dallas should have had fun and said, we expected a 75-yard touchdown just for fun. But that's what you do. That's okay. We saw a look. Now we're going to put a play in and boom, we got the right look. And now we're going to run this play because of what we got. And I've said this before. I really came to appreciate how important game day play calling is. And one of the guys that really had knocked it home to me more than anything was watching Gary Kubiak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Kubiak was the head coach in Denver when they won their last Super Bowl, head coach in Houston with the Texans, also was an offensive coordinator, and was offensive coordinator in Baltimore for a year. And just watching him call a game and how his script would set up stuff in the third quarter and the fourth quarter, it was unreal. And to me, it was instinctive. It's an instinctive skill. Does that make sense?
It is.
You can't. I'm not saying you can't teach it.
Sure.
And you can't learn it. But some of that's just gut, right?
Being a good offensive coordinator is like being a really good author writing a book. Where, all right, you're introducing things in the first and second chapter that may not seem really relevant right now, but end up becoming a huge deal late in the story for whatever the payoff and the grand finale of it is. So yeah, you have to really think in these. And again, if you really just sat down with Dow Loggins and could be unfiltered with him, where he didn't have to worry about what he said getting out, what he could explain to you about football would probably blow your mind, because he's done it at the highest level. And again, he eats, sleeps, and breathes this every single day. I'm sure when he's not talking to the media, he is grinding film as much as possible, trying to learn everything he can for the next opponent. And he just seems like a guy that thoroughly enjoys doing those kind of things.
Yeah, I just look at it like also when you listen to these guys talk, it's like, okay, even someone who might not be, and I'm not talking about Dow, just in general, I have talked to like coaches over the years of doing this, and they might not be looked at as great compared to these other coaches, whether it's head coaches, assistant coaches, coordinators, whatever. But all these guys know the game.
Of course, you don't get this far without it.
Right. How do you apply what you know to coaching? That's where some guys are just better than others. Every now and then you get a dude who is a little like Kyle Shanahan. He's just like Rain Man, right? The stuff he's doing, Mike Leach, there's a small percentage of guys who creatively are just better than everybody else.
Yeah.
But most of the time, from what I've learned, is how do you apply what you know to coaching players? Like Marcus Satterfield. We'll take one right here. Everybody told me, you put that dude on a whiteboard, it's like a Mensa meeting. He's that smart. But how he communicated and applied his knowledge to coordinating an offense and play calling just didn't work. But he knew the game.
Yeah.
He just couldn't take it off the whiteboard and apply it to the football field.
And you do have to remember as well, this is college football. They only have 20 hours with these guys during the week. So you can be the smartest guy in the world when it comes to the X's and O's of football, but you can't instill all that in your players with the limited time that you have with them. So you have to be able to take your knowledge but circumvent it in a way where the guys that are going out there and executing the plays understand what they need to be doing to the degree you need them to understand it.
Yeah, and that's where, again, Marcus Satterfield had his issue. Taking it from the whiteboard, getting it through the players, and getting it accomplished on the field. And that's the coaching part where a lot of it's applying what you know. And so the play caller, though, you're sitting there, and some of these guys just have this instinctive feel. I always equate it to the old days when managers in baseball were really managers.
Yep. And
not puppets of the GM and the analytics department. A manager, in a lot of ways, was next level if you knew how to handle a pitching staff. And a lot of times that was instinctive feel of the moment, instinctive feel of the day or whatever, just your gut. You had this instinctive feel of when to do something. People here were talking about Ray Tanner when he was the baseball coach. The instinctive feel Tanner had in managing a game was just, he always just and you probably ask Ray and he'd go, I was just managing. I can't tell you. There's an instinctive feel to play calling.
Because it's a sixth sense to them.
Yes. And that's what I feel about play callers. The really, really good ones are just instinctively able to go, you know what? Right now, this play. And if you ask them why they did it, they'll go, it just felt right in the moment.
I just did it.
I just felt we did something in the first quarter that I felt set up this coming up at some point in the second half, and I knew that was the time to do it there. So, good stuff from Dow Loggins. Good stuff. All right, Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest, $400. Just go to 1075thegame.com. Look for the little Lawyer Lisa on the clicky thingy, and you click it. You fill out the form. You hit submit. If there is a touchdown, we'll be doing a drawing on the early game at 7:30 Monday morning for $400. But to qualify, you got to go to 1075thegame.com. Clayton White's turn. Clayton doesn't go as long. We'll get into Clayton White talking about that three-man front coming up next on the halftime show on the game. What we're talking about, obviously, Carolina football, Gamecocks, Akron Zips, Saturday, 2:30 Gamecocks game day, sponsored by LexMed Ortho. We will be at the party lot at Sound and Images, Bluff Road, right across from Williams-Brice. Like I said, we get it cooking at 2:30. Network takes over at 4:30. Kickoff 7:30. South Carolina, a 144-point favorite right now against Akron.
Feels that way. By the way, South Carolina wearing their 1980s throwback threads this weekend as well.
That's cool. You're more of a jersey guy than I am. So
I am a uniform nut when it comes to these things.
You are quite the geek for the uniforms. I'm always like this. I don't care if you wear evening gowns as long as you win. But I'm more like the NFL jerseys. Mm-hmm. Like I do appreciate a Charger throwback.
Sure.
Love the Bronco orange crush from back in the old days.
I will say this for your Ravens. I think purple and black is a very underrated color combo.
Yeah, you know what? As long as it's in the beginning, the purple took a little bit to get used to, but when you add the black to it, it really gives it a little bit more of something.
Yeah,
I'll say I like the old school Raider jersey.
Oh,
I like
of course.
That. So there are jerseys I appreciate. I'm sure I'm missing a few off the top of my head, but I tell you the one throwback that ugly. B-looking thing that the Steelers wore back a few years ago.
The prison uniforms.
Yeah, that thing was bad. It looked like the girl from the Blind Melon video.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that thing was awful.
There's a reason that they changed uniforms after the 1930s. A lot of teams, like the Packers, do that weird throwback where they have like the little numbers and like the the circle, and it's like a blue jersey. Like there's a reason they didn't keep these things.
Yes. I like that original Tampa Bay Buccaneer.
The creamsicle buck, which is funny because people hated the creamsicle when it was actually around.
And now
it's like, oh my God, go back to it.
I kind of like that. Yeah, I won't lie to you. I like it more now than I did then. Then it was like, whatever. Now I'm like, man, I did dig that creamsicle.
Listen, as long as they don't bring back those digital clock-looking arena football uniforms they had before Brady got there, I'm good with it.
Hideous. All right, so we got throwback for South Carolina with the uniforms on Saturday as well at Williams-Brice. All right, Clayton White talking to the media. 3-man fronts, 4-man fronts. The defensive line, especially in the first quarter, dominated the LSU offensive line. Will Campbell it might have been his worst Pro Football Focus grade. Kyle Kennard did work on Will Campbell. We didn't talk about this. Kyle Kennard improved his NFL draft stock last Saturday.
Oh, for sure.
Because Will Campbell had some problems with Kyle Kennard. Will Campbell, his grade was under 50.
Yeah.
This guy will be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. That's how good of a job mostly Kyle Kennard did against Will Campbell.
Right.
So, again, we had a lot of talk about South Carolina. Why'd you go from the 4-man front to the 3? And Clayton White explained that yesterday. So here's Clayton White in general discussing his defensive line versus LSU's offensive line.
I thought the guys played extremely hard. I thought those guys kept fighting. The quarterback, sometimes, the hits don't really count as a stat, but our guys did a really good job of keeping them kind of in the pocket, and he made some great throws. He really did. You go back and watch it on Sunday, 4 or 5 of those throws. I mean, it was good defense, good rush, good coverage, good ball. Can't really defend everything, so you got to give them credit. And they're a better football team. They have more talent than the first 2 teams that we played, so is really what it was.
There's Clayton saying, they got skills. We always got to remember the other guys are trying to. I know it's a dumb saying we always throw out there, but it's true. And LSU made adjustments. Now, we can talk about that 3-man front. And when your 4-man front's working so well and you went to that 3-man front, and Clayton discussed it, they were doing it to kind of help coverage. And then the first time they go to 3-man, they bust the coverage.
Yeah.
And the flip side of that, maybe you argue and say, well, they were getting the ball out quicker, which kind of wipes out your pass rush as well. And you're trying to do something on the back end to help yourself. But in that first quarter, South Carolina was dominant with that 4-man front, and they were getting heat on Nussmeier like nobody's business. But again, the other team adjusted. Yeah. A lot of quicker throws, running the football.
And especially even with the 4-man front this season, we've seen teams still be able to run the ball in South Carolina. So having that extra guy up front, helps you out a little bit more there, but that's still an area that it's a work in progress. But yeah, especially with what they had at receiver, you knew you weren't going to keep LSU down for long when it came to them throwing the football. So you do have to make those adjustments as the game goes along.
Yeah, and it's one of those things as well that, even teams who get the most pressure on a quarterback, that quarterback's still going to have roughly 50 or 60% of his throws not under pressure. So coverage does matter a lot more than sometimes we want to talk about. Oh, get pass rush, go get pass rush, get pass rush. And I agree, because that can throw off like we saw against Kentucky. Our boy Brock, he was seeing ghosts. I mean, I'm telling you, when he walked out, when he got dressed and left the locker room, Dylan Stewart hit him in the hallway.
Yeah, say he heard the footsteps as he was leaving Kroger Field.
Yeah, so it can get in a quarterback's head and throw the entire rhythm of a pass offense like sideways. But there are times you'll get a quarterback, and let's give, and like Clayton White said, let's give Garrett Nussmeier some credit. Dude was running for his life the first 15 minutes of that football game. But he kept going. LSU adjusted. Nussmeier made some off-platform type of throws or throws when he was getting heat that were pretty good. They got rid of the ball quicker. They started to kind of say, okay, this pass rush, this thing's insane. We got to run the ball at, because a lot of times they say you want to neutralize a pass rusher, run the ball at him.
Yep.
So they started running the ball more and getting the ball out of Nussmeier's hands quicker. And so then Clayton tries to adjust. Now, again, the chess match you and I talked about.
Right.
And that's what happened in that instance. And sometimes you give the other side credit for winning that part of a chess match at times. So here's also Clayton. Now, Joe Moorhead, the head coach at Akron, coached with Clayton at Connecticut. They were
Correct.
both on the same staff.
Yep.
So here is Clayton White, cut 14, Tyler, talking about Akron head coach and his former coaching buddy at UConn, Joe Moorhead.
Yep, I have a lot of respect for Coach Moorhead. Obviously, two of my coaching years were at University of Connecticut, UConn, and I was on the offensive side of the ball, coaching running backs and special teams coordinator. Joe Moorhead was the former OC, quarterbacks coach that year. A lot of respect for his brain, how he looks at football. He looks at it completely different than most. Obviously, his track record, his coaching career speaks a lot for himself, and we'll say he's a creative mind and that loves to draw plays up, and great guy, great family.
There you go. How about Clayton? You forget. If you ever look at Clayton's career,
He's been everywhere. I think he's coached with everybody.
And he's coached both sides of the ball. I mean, Clayton's career is like, wow, man, look at you. At UConn, coaching the offensive side of the ball at that time with Joe Moorhead. And he was a position coach while Joe Moorhead and himself were on that same staff. So Clayton kind of knows Joe Moorhead. And I'll say this. Look, Joe Moorhead, obviously people give him a ton of props for his offensive the offensive systems he's run, his offensive mind, being really creative. I mean, they're playing this two-quarterback thing right now, and I just think because he has no quarterback. I truly think he has no quarterback.
He's trying to think outside the box because he doesn't have the caliber of talent that he had when he was at Penn State, when he was at Mississippi State. So he's like, you know what? I got a quarterback that I can run a little bit here with Taj Bullock. Let's put him out there on offense at wide receiver and use him as window dressing before plays. And if nothing else, we can try and confuse the defense with it. So I understand where he's trying to go with it. We just have not seen it be like super effective yet.
This offense isn't very good. The defense isn't very good. They're both near the bottom in college football in many metrics, whether it's regular numbers, advanced metrics, whatever. It's a bad offense. The offensive line struggles to protect. They give up sacks. Neither quarterback is anything that's going to scare you. The wide receivers, there's some talent there, but again, the quarterback has trouble getting the ball, and sometimes tough to throw the ball when the quarterback's laying on their back in pain.
Yep.
Defensively, they got a couple of guys, but also that defense gets gashed. They're giving up, 190 yards a game on the ground. Mm-hmm. The formula's there to run them over. Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Get a lot of yards on the ground, and you should be able to suffocate their offense with your pass rush. Now, the one thing I will say is you've had some issues stopping the run at times. Could Akron try to run the football on you? But again, that shouldn't matter in the big picture in this football game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, our Tyler House sub, Our Firehouse Sub Text the Hour coming up at 803-404-6100. We hang here up until 3. Then the post-game show live at CHW Cabinetry. Also, we'll be at Hardee's today as well, 3 to 6, to feed the kids lunch in the Midlands. All that's coming up. Halftime show on the game. Time for our Firehouse sub text the hour at 803-404-6100 here on the Halftime Show. What you got, man?
Nameless text weighs in and says, glad my Jets brought back their 80s throwbacks. Says the 60s uniforms were the best, though. For those that don't know, the Jets are essentially wearing the same, like, style of what they had back in the 80s where, they had the green helmets with Jets written out on it. I think it's a good look.
Yeah, and those 60s ones were...
The Namaths.
Yeah, they were cool. And the Jets, I won't disagree on the Jet jerseys.
Yeah.
Not bad.
You'll be able to see them tonight on Thursday Night Football, by the way.
As they take on the Patriots.
That's right.
Yeah, it's really funny. The Jets are 1-1. They haven't been 2-1 since 2015.
Which is insane.
It is insane. And I saw that stat on SportsCenter today, and I went,
But
really?
then you think about who their quarterbacks have been in the past decade, and you're like, that makes sense.
Oh, they've been
I get
awful. Now, you should beat New England at home in your home opener. You just hope that, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have an exploding Achilles on the fourth offensive play. But you should beat New England at home. And that offense, too, the Jets, it's taken a bit for it to get going in the first two games.
It has. And look, we've talked about it plenty. Quarterback play around the league has been down for the first couple weeks. Aaron Rodgers obviously coming off of his injury. It was going to take a little bit of time for him to kind of return to his true form. Geno Smith threw for over 300 yards last weekend against this Patriots team. This could kind of be the night that Aaron Rodgers, reemerges as that Aaron Rodgers we kind of know him as against a weak pass defense that the Patriots have.
Yeah. The Patriots, that win in week one.
Listen, the Bengals are not the Bengals right now.
Yeah, to me, it was more of what the Bengals didn't do than what the Patriots did. No offense to the Patriots. Seattle started to move the ball up and down the field on New England, and you kind of see the limitation of an offense led by Jacoby Brissett with not a lot of great weapons in it anyway.
That's why they're just handing the ball off.
Yeah, thank God they got Stevenson to run the football.
He is accounting handoffs to him have been 36% of their offense so far this year.
It's just they're very limited on offense. They're limited at the quarterback position, and they're trying to get a lot of unders.
Well,
that's what they're trying to do.
And look, this is a organization that's rebuilding. You move on from Bill Belichick, you bring in you bring him in, you promote him to being your head coach. You're trying to get Drake May to be your guy. He's not there yet. You got Jacoby Brissett, who is one of the universal placeholder quarterbacks that's been in the league for 10 years at this point in time that you use to bridge a gap between where you are and where you're going. So whenever Drake May's ready to go, they'll put him in there and maybe the offense will take off then. But this is kind of a feeling out process as this organization is. And look, they're never going to get back to being what they were. Let's just go ahead and say that right now. Can they get back to being competitive in the AFC East? I think is the first goal, and it's probably gonna be a while till they get there.
Yeah, it's just the roster's not great, especially on offense. You look at the skill positions on offense. It's one of the worst groups in the league. And you have Stevenson, who's done a nice job since he is the offense, but New England's just going to struggle to score points. And you give up a lot of yards in the air as a defense, and other teams start posting numbers on you. Your offense can't come back if you're down by 2 scores.
Yeah, they can't dig themselves out of a hole.
And to me, New England's still a 7-10 football team. This is what they are: 7-10, 6-11, whatever. But the Jets should get well tonight against New England at home in the home opener. By the way, it is funny. Mel Kiper gave everybody something to talk about today.
Yes, he did.
Speaking of quarterbacks struggling and offenses struggling. He basically said outlaw the two deep safety, the cover two, the 2 deep safety.
Right, because there's not enough things tilted in favor of the offense in the NFL right now.
Well, you got to understand that right now this product for the casual fan is boring.
Yeah, because they're not scoring 30 points a game.
Right, they're not scoring a ton. There's not a lot of. Basically, defensive coordinators have eliminated the big play.
Yeah,
they're going to force you to move 10, 12 plays down the field to score. And right now, you have a bunch of young quarterbacks who don't have that patience to be able to take what the defense is giving them, and they're making mistakes. Well, and like you said, Aaron Rodgers is coming back from an injury.
Yeah.
He's not 100%, plus he's almost 40 years old.
Yep.
So right now, defensive coordinators are looking at quarterbacks in the NFL and going, we got a lot of young guys early in their career. We're going to force them to be patient. What they don't want to be is patient. So taking away the big play, and Mel said, dump that 2 deep safety. Outlaw, make them have to line up within 10 yards, whatever he said, yards of the ball. But here's the thing. They're not going to do that.
No.
Unless they see their TV numbers drop. Then all of a sudden they'll say, hey, Mel, what was your idea again? But, football guys are all, and it's easy. Okay, run the ball. Force that safety to come up and get in the box and play the run.
Right.
And then you'll get that opening again to throw it down the field. They were showing some film here a little while ago on Pat McAfee where you're looking at there are seams and creases to throw the football against a two deep.
You got to find it.
You got to find it, but here's the thing, you got to execute it and hit it.
Yep.
But yeah, it's pretty interesting. Mel gave everybody something to talk about today on the Talking Head shows. By the way, he lost his mind when he was telling it too.
Well,
it was really
he usually
funny.
loses his mind when he's ranting about things.
It was pretty funny. So anyway, we appreciate the text as always, 803-404-6100. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors, is coming up next here on the Halftime Show on The Game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We run till 3 here on the game. Football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We appreciate you if you're listening in Columbia, 107.5 The Game. In Florence at 100.5 The Game. In Myrtle Beach, 100.3 The Game. Maybe you're watching on Game TV, at Game TV Radio, on YouTube, powered by Integrated Media, sponsored by Shepherd's Glass. Or you can just download the 107.5 The Game app from iTunes and Google Play. We stalk you no matter where you're at. We will find you, and we're trying to follow you around until you kind of get creeped out and you just listen or watch.
I just, we have the SEC network up watching the replay of the South Carolina LSU game, and that first touchdown run by Durham of LSU, I think it was 3 missed tackles on that play, on that inside run. Whew, got to clean that up.
Well, that was the drive. It's 17-0. Mo Brown blocks the punt. The place is going insane.
Yep.
And that's when LSU started making their adjustments. A lot of quick throws. They started running the ball right up the gut of the defense. That's where the touchdown was, right up the middle.
Yep.
Yeah, 3 missed tackles. Also, you kind of had a hold at the line of scrimmage. But, yeah, 3 missed tackles as well. And that was a 3rd and 9.
Mm-hmm. And
really, that's when it started to change. If you get that 3rd and 9 stop and force LSU to kick a field goal, you walk off the field with a win. They've got to kick a field goal, and you're still up 14.
Yep.
And you weathered their first real drive and gave up only 3. So, to me, that was a huge moment in the football game. That and Sellers getting hurt. Those are the two. I mean, we can talk about the officials and the calls, but that touchdown run gave LSU momentum and confidence they could get in the end zone.
Yeah, if Sellers is healthy for that entire game, and again, he went out late second quarter, tried to come back in the third, wasn't happening. If he's there for the second half, I mean, you're probably putting together at least 1 or 2 more sustained drives, hopefully scoring and probably walking out of there with a win.
I said, Jay, yesterday, I've got no evidence to back it up, obviously, just what I think. I think South Carolina wins the game if Sellers is healthy. I just do. Because you almost won the game without Sellers for a half.
Yep.
So, and they're doing the replay right now, but now is when the momentum started to turn on that drive when LSU makes it 17-7. All right, so Dal Loggins, like we said, the coordinators talked to the media yesterday, and we're doing football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Loggins talked about a variety of things yesterday in his time with the media. The wide receiver room is one of the things he did speak of. Jared Brown, I mean, that was a nice deep connection with Lenore Sellers on Saturday against LSU. Brown's had a couple of drops this year, but he is the closest thing to a consistent weapon you've had in the passing game from the wide receiver crew.
Yep.
And you've seen a little flash, and Nick Harbor had a couple of catches last Saturday. We've seen Dre Jacobs pop up every now and then. But there's been, besides Brown has been, and the tight ends have been the consistency in the passing game. So here is Dal Loggins talking about that wide receiver room after 3 weeks.
Yeah, I've been JB's done. He's kind of taken a step and separated a little bit from the pack. That way, I think he and Lenoris are starting to develop a confidence together, kind of little chemistry. And his confidence. He's such a good kid. Like, he's humble and just excited to be here and excited to be a part of it. And I remember the first game against ODU, he drops the ball that it just crushes him because he works his tail off to be here. And he's like, man, it was different, Coach. I looked up in the stands and there's like 80,000 people, and like the ball at Coastal, I could just see it and catch it. And like now all of a sudden these stadiums are full, and it's but that's humility. When you say that stuff, it's also gratitude and gratefulness to be given this opportunity. Happy with him. I think it's a group that's still improving. Coach Furry works his tail off to get these guys ready. It's a group that's young. They come from everywhere. Florida. Dre came from Florida State late in the process. DeCamp came from Nevada late in the process. Mazio's a true freshman. Nick missed a lot because of track, and so everyone's trying to get back out there, and I can name them all. Peyton and Luke Doty and all these other guys. I don't want to miss anyone. Gage, same thing, came from Miami, Ohio, and nicked up in training camp. So same thing. Like it's a work in progress. We're not where we need to be. I think we have the talent we need to have, and just continue to play and develop chemistry. I'm happy with where the direction they're going, but still want someone to separate them from the group as well.
Yeah, you talk about Jared Brown and that drop, which is that drop in the first game was, deep ball, you've gotten the separation, hit you in that bad spot.
I mean, he's gone. It's touchdown.
Yeah. And I love the explanation there from Dow Loggins. And again, this is why when Dow's ready to talk and he's in the mood, you get that story. Brown comes and goes, Coach, I'm looking up in the stand. I'm looking up and I see people in the stands. I'm not used to this. There's people everywhere, and it just blew my concentration, and I dropped it. But since that drop, Brown has been the most consistent receiver. Amazio Bennett had a moment or two. We just haven't seen consistency except Brown and the tight ends. So you're hoping at some point someone else steps up at the wide receiver position and brings some consistency. That would only help.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one thing about this weekend. If Lenore Sellers is not able to play, is that is one less week worth of reps you're going to get with your wide receivers. And again, we've seen steps forward in each game so far. And yeah, drops are still an issue. He's, his accuracy is something he's still working to refine, but really it's just the chemistry with these guys and getting on the same page with them. And, you would love to have another 30 or 40 plays with them this Saturday, but again, health is the most important thing. I just hope that one less game doesn't, put them half a step back going into the Ole Miss game in 2 weeks.
No, you don't. And that's a game. Now, once you get past Akron, now, like you said, this game you want to use as getting that feel good, right?
Yep.
In the places you need the feel good. Wide receiver's a place. It'd be nice to have those guys. And look, you can run. You can run over Akron. 190 yards a game roughly they give up on the ground. But it'd be nice to get your receivers some touches. However you want to build your offense, just to give them enough to where they feel good about themselves going into the Ole Miss game, because you're going to need to score points.
Yes.
Against Ole Miss.
Quite a few.
It's just nothing against the South Carolina defense. That defense is legit. That pass rush is real. Those linebackers are athletic. Yeah, you got a couple things in coverage you want to clean up, but I think as a whole they're better than they were last year, and partly is the pass rush.
And importantly, you can't get into a hole early in that game.
No.
So if you're shaky coming out of the gate, you're going to blink and they're going to be up 21-0 on you.
Because you know what team? There's only one team in the country that grades out better in pass rush than South Carolina.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. So you can't let them pin their ears back when you're down multiple scores and just have them start coming after your quarterback.
By the way, they're looking at a shaky offensive line and a redshirt freshman quarterback licking their lips and waiting to feast on that.
It'd be nice if more than Jared Brown and the tight ends could pop in the passing game.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you can use Akron for as well. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Let's get another Dow cut, Tyler. Cut 2 is kind of important. Ball security, 9 fumbles. You watch the games. 9 times South Carolina's put the ball on the ground. Lucky for the Gamecocks, they've recovered 6 of them on their own. There was that moment the Kentucky game was teetering when the tight ends, Simon and Smith, made big fumble recoveries. Of course, they also didn't help in pass protection, which led to the fumbles.
They were the reason the fumbles kind of happened.
So it was good that they recovered the fumbles. But 9 times South Carolina has fumbled the football, has only lost 3 of them, but you can't hope you're going to continue to get the bounce to go your way. You got to start securing the rock. Here's Dow Loggins talking about ball security.
I appreciate you putting that very delicately because it is an issue. You're not going to beat SEC teams when you turn the ball over 3 times. And look, picks, interceptions are going to happen. Peyton Manning is one of the best quarterbacks of all time, if not the best, and he still has the rookie record for most interceptions thrown. But the fumbles are what drive you nuts, because most of the time the fumbles are a technique thing. And when I look at those things and the quarterbacks had 2 of them, so I hold myself accountable, and that's where I start to get frustrated with myself. Is obviously what I'm doing is not working, and I need to find a different way to challenge them fundamentally on those things. Now, Lenore's, he made an unbelievable check that most redshirt freshmen don't make in that look. He saw a look that we talked about on Friday morning that they had shown in the past. They hadn't shown one time on tape. And we said, hey, look, they could do this. They have not done this one time this year. And they played with their nickel, a little bit number 7. But they had it, and they did it some when he was at Missouri. And obviously we had the 2 years at Arkansas and last year and he checks that play, and we had a bust in the protection. And at that point, knowing the journey's over and throw the ball away because he's got Mazio for a first down. He checks the play, and I'm in the box saying, what's he doing? I'm asking the signal guys. I'm like, hey, you two, what play did you signal in? And I see him making this, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh wow, he just checked that. He saw it. It was an incredible check. But when we don't get the other 10 guys to do their job, let's end every series with a kick. And if we do that, we keep playing smart, and the defense came in and held them to 3 that way. But all of a sudden, LaNorris is playing his best half of football without a question, without a doubt. What he was seeing in the game starts slowing down. All of a sudden, like, you start as a play caller, you start to feel like you're Superman because, hey, I can call anything. It's a little bit like Spence last year where whatever we call, if it's not the picture-perfect look, he's going to get to number 2. He's going to get to number 3. When you start making those checks and all stuff, now you're like, hey, this guy's starting to see it, and it's starting to slow down a little bit for him. But then when someone doesn't do their job, you have the ball last. You have the ability to erase any mistake from someone else, and don't let someone else's mistake become yours. So, and then Robbie's was a technique thing. We got to have our clock in our heads on some of these third down things. The ball either has to come out, we have to run it, or we check the ball down, but we can't sit back there all day and hold those things because both the fumbles were on third down.
Yeah, that's the thing. At some point, you got to check it down or you got to take off. You can't just stand there and hold the ball, trying to make a big play or waiting for something to open up that just isn't there. Living for the next play is never a bad thing.
And that also in part goes to the receivers as well, because they do have to have separation. They have to be wide open enough to where North Sellers says, okay, I want to throw it to Dre Jacobs, because again, if you feel like you're not going to be able to fit it in to a tight window, you're going to hold on to the ball. So again, that's just those little fine mechanical things that you're still trying to work out through the first couple games of the season. And again, a team like Akron gives you the opportunity to fine-tune some of those things before the tough part of your schedule comes.
Because that's the reality of this. We always, okay, quarterback holds the ball too long, well, get rid of it. Well, sometimes nobody's open, and you're just waiting for somebody to get open. But sometimes you got to give it up and either throw it away or take off. Or if there's a check down open, you got to take the check down. 2, like with sacks, it's not always on the offensive line. Sometimes it's on the quarterback. Sometimes it's on the receivers not getting open. Sometimes it's on the running back or the tight end not blocking in pass protection. It's always sometimes more than just the obvious thing. And like with holding the ball, yeah, get rid of it. But sometimes there's more of a bigger picture to why you're holding the ball. But at some point as a quarterback, you got to know when to let it go. Like LaNorris Sellers in those first couple games, especially the Kentucky game, he wasn't feeling that heat coming on his right side. And as he's dropping back to pass, he's getting hit because he's holding the ball. But the tight end is missing in pass protection, not the offensive lineman. And then all of a sudden, LaNorris not feeling that rush is getting hit when he's getting ready to throw instead of stepping up and stepping away.
And that's the thing when it comes to ball security is it's not just fixing one thing. It's, okay, yes, Sellers has to be more aware. Maybe don't hang on the ball as long, but the guys on the outside, they got to pass protect. They got to make sure that he has that time in the pocket, waiting for things to develop down the field. The receivers do have to create that separation. So it's all working and moving and getting those things fine-tuned, before you take on the toughest teams, because you're going to need to be better on offense playing Alabama, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, these other teams. You're not going to have a chance.
We were looking over it earlier today about what you're facing in efficiency on offense and defense. We're getting to that next. It's a coming. And you got to get some stuff like, set in the right direction before you face what you're about to face. You're playing on a level where you can win. You can win some of these games that people didn't think you were going to win, but you're not going to be favored. But to win those games, there's things you're going to have to tighten up. We'll get into that next. Halftime show, it's football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors, right here on The Game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, 1 o'clock hours. Football here on the game. South Carolina, 28-point favorites. By the way, the over-under's 44.5.
So what's the message today at practice about how scary Akron is from Coach Beamer?
Oh, he's trying. Like I said, he'll show the cut-up of the long touchdown run. He'll show the comeback against Colgate. He'll show how they hung out with Ohio State for 2.5 quarters.
So we have AI and stuff now, right, where you can, manipulate anything on video. Can you, take the 85 Bears film and, overlay Akron jerseys on them and then get, 2019 LSU's offense and overlay the Akron jerseys on them and, guys, this is what you're going up against this weekend. I hope you're ready.
That dude looks a lot like Joe Burrow.
No, it's Ben Finley.
Promise. Yeah, it's look, again, it's Shane's job to try to make Akron look like the love child of the 85 Bears and the 19 LSU Tigers.
Yes.
And he's going to try, but again, if I can, the schmo I am, go on the internet and see that South Carolina's a 28-point favorite, I'm sure the players can find out that South Carolina's a 28-point favorite.
Look, they're well aware. They know that this is a game they're favored heavily in. As long as they go out there and execute, they should be fine. Again, anything can happen in college football. We've seen plenty of the crazy upsets over the years, so you can never rule that out completely. But I feel pretty confident saying South Carolina, based on what we've seen this year, should be fine on Saturday.
Basically, they're saying that South Carolina will whoop Akron in a game that's not going to have a ton of they'll cover their number 31 to 3 or 34 to 3 or 38 to 6 or whatever.
And I do think it's worth mentioning that let's assume Robbie Ashford is going to start at quarterback this weekend. Probably going to be pretty run heavy. Now, South Carolina's already run heavy at about a 70 to 30 clip so far this season. But if you got Ashford at quarterback, that might be 80-20 or 75-25. Mm-hmm. So that clock's probably going to run quite a bit during this game. So you may not get a ton of possessions in it.
But I think because Akron's so bad at stopping the run, you can still score a boatload of points.
Maybe
they don't stop the run. And then 190 yards a game the teams are getting against Akron on the ground.
Yeah.
And if South Carolina's they can't stop the run. We really want to run. So they could still get up in the, I'll be honest with you, I just did the Gamecock Central picks today.
Oh, I got to do that.
I've got South Carolina winning 42-13.
Wait, you actually submitted yours before anybody else?
Yes.
You're usually the last one to do it.
Oh, I'm always called out. Jack, or back in the day before, it was
Colin.
It was Colin. Always get, Terry, waiting on Ford. Hey, Ford, Terry.
Hey, Terry, kickoff's in 30 minutes. We need your picks.
We need your picks. I got them in. And I went 42-13. I think South Carolina learns their lesson from Old Dominion, and they run over an Akron team that can't stop the run. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Robbie Ashford, Robbie Benson, Robbie Knievel. It doesn't matter who plays quarterback for this team. I think they're going to run heavy on Akron, and Akron can't stop it. And Rocket Sanders will probably have a gigantic day.
Yep.
That's the way I feel. And I think they cover the number. How about that? So, I think they learned from Old Dominion. I think that's very easy for Shane. I mean, to me, that's the motivation, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. No, that is the one thing that can humble you this week is hey, guys, you probably thought the same thing going into the ODU game, and guess what happened? You were in a nail-biter in the fourth quarter there. So these guys are well aware. I don't think it's going to go to their head. And like I said, I think they should be fine on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. I think they win easy on Saturday. And they've gotten 3 games in now. So it's not like, we haven't played a game yet. No, you played 3 games. So I think they win easy. All right, when you move forward from that game on Saturday, and let's say South Carolina does win, they go to 3-1. This is what you're coming up against. I'm not going by the order schedule. I'm just going by the order as I see the teams in front of me. Again, I'm going by offensive and defensive efficiency ratings from Billy Connolly's SP+. Alabama, number 3 in offensive efficiency in the nation, number 6 in defensive efficiency. That's what you're going up against. Ole Miss, number 1 in offensive efficiency, but here's the difference. 13th in defensive efficiency. Typically, Ole Miss, you can score a boatload on them. What was that game last year? They lost to LSU. They beat LSU like 100-98.
55-49. It was pretty high
Game
scoring.
was ridiculous. It was the same night that South Carolina played Tennessee, if my memory serves me.
That's correct, because we were watching the end of that game on one TV, because that game took like 4.5 hours.
It was craziness.
Yeah.
Because nobody could stop anyone. But Ole Miss, 13th in defensive efficiency and number 1 graded pass rush by Pro Football Focus. You move on to Missouri, number 10 in offensive efficiency, number 15 in defensive efficiency. So right now, 3 opponents, all 3 of these opponents in the top 10 in offensive efficiency and in the top 15 in defensive efficiency. So your offense is facing some legit defenses, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
All right, then you move on again to Oklahoma. Oklahoma is 14th in defensive efficiency. Now that's 4 teams that are top 15 on defense. Offensively, Oklahoma's only 36th right now. Again, not a surprise.
Right.
You lose your offensive coordinator, lose your quarterback, lose your offensive line. It's going to take a little bit of time to ramp it up. And then you get to Texas A&M. 23rd in offensive efficiency, 29th in defensive efficiency, top 30 in both departments right now is Texas A&M. Clemson, 22nd in offensive efficiency, which is shocking. But who'd they boat race by 100 in week 2?
Who?
Clemson.
Oh, App State.
Yeah, which was a kind of a surprise because App State, typically you don't do that to App State. So Clemson is sitting in the top 25 in offensive efficiency at 22 and are 31st in defensive efficiency. So you're looking at teams either really, really good on both sides of the ball, or at the very least, they are top 30-ish on defense, which means your offense is going up against some good to really good defenses moving forward, except for Vandy and Wofford after today, or after Saturday, I should say. So, again, your offense is going to have to start gelling because this defense is really good. I believe this defense is no joke, but the average score in the SEC by a really good offense is typically around 30 points. So your offense has got to get its game going because you have the ability to win some of these by the way you've been playing the last couple of weeks. But your offense, and it's getting better, and it's a shame that Sellers got hurt at the end of the first half against LSU. But LSU, just for an example, their defensive efficiency, 68th. I'm just saying.
Yep.
So your offense, it's going in the right direction, especially if you get a healthy Lenore Sellers, but you are going to have to find another gear coming up on the offensive side of the ball. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Saturday, 2:30, pregame, 7:30 kick. You can hear it right here on the Game in Columbia and our affiliate in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Akron. Today, CHW Cabinetry in Lexington, post-game show 3 to 6 with special guest Jen Jensen. And also we'll be at Hardee's. Just reminding you that it is Hunger Action Month. The Game and Hardee's teaming up for the Hardee's Roundup. You round up your bill to the nearest dollar, and that change will go to the Harvest Hope Food Bank for students to help feed lunches to kids in the Midlands. So that's what's happening right now, and that's what's going on Saturday. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. There's a football game tonight in the NFL, and the NFL's played 2 games. We're going to get into some of that, especially a lot of heat continuing to go on in Philadelphia, and deservedly so after that debacle Monday night. Nick Sirianni might not survive the season, even though 2 years ago his Eagles played in the Super Bowl. We got some NFL stuff to get into next. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, football in the 1 o'clock hour. Again, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on the Game. The Men's Clinic of South Carolina, 803-875-MENS. Dr. Dan and the staff specialize in getting you to feeling like you again if you are suffering from low testosterone. If you just don't feel like you used to feel. And there's so many different ways, whether it's just you don't have any life drive, professional drive, sex drive, you just have no drive in general. Maybe you're not as strong at the gym. Maybe you don't bounce back from a workout like you used to. Maybe you're sleeping for crap. Maybe you can't remember anything anymore. All these things could be happening to you, and you think, oh, my God, I'm getting older. Is there something wrong with me, or am I just becoming an old fart? It might just be low testosterone. 803-875-MENS. Make the call. Show up for the free confidential consultation. Tell your story. If the staff thinks it could be low testosterone, they'll do lab work. If it is low T, they'll put you on a program that is specially designed for you to get you to feeling like you again. Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Make that call. Feel better. We're talking football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Obviously, we've talked a ton of South Carolina today. 28-point favorites at home against Akron this Saturday. Make no mistake, Akron's not very good. No matter what numbers, stats, metrics, the eye test, it's not a very good football team. And South Carolina should take advantage of that Saturday at home. Again, 2:30 we get it going here with Gamecocks Game Day. 7:30 kick. We also get you ready with our Friday tailgate at Columbia Craft. Green Street in the Vista, 3 to 6 p.m. with Jay and Elijah. That will be Saturday right here on the game. All right, so in the NFL, Tyler, we have a game tonight. Again, the Jets hosting the Patriots. The Jets should win tonight.
Yes.
The Patriots are still in the rebuilding phase. The Jets are not in a rebuilding phase. They're in a win-now phase.
Well, they were in a win-now phase a year ago. And
how'd that go?
If Rodgers would have made it past 4 snaps, who knows what would have happened. But when you suddenly turn over the reins to Zach Wilson, who was the problem to begin with, then, you wasted a really good defense a year ago.
Well, the sad part is, like, in that Week 1 game where they just got smacked, the 49ers just owned the line of scrimmage. It was one thing that the Jet offense struggled a bit, right? But the thing that really was eye-opening was how the Jet defense just got cooked.
Yeah.
Much better, obviously, in Week 2. You're 1-1 on the season. You should win. A couple of little notes from the NFL. Bryce Young went back to practice yesterday. David Canales, the head coach, talking to the media. Hey, we haven't given up on Bryce Young. We're not going to trade him. It's just basically he's taking a step back. We still think he can be a franchise quarterback. The players supporting Young. Word is Young was not happy, obviously, with being benched, where he shouldn't be. I would worry. I would be concerned if I was a head coach.
Yep.
And I had a meeting with you and said I was benching you, and you weren't unhappy.
Yeah, like you're being told you're not good enough. Like, of course, you're going to be unhappy with that now. And I asked this to Dimitri when I talked to him yesterday, because after their loss to the Chargers on Sunday, Dave Canales said, hey, Bryce, he's still our guy. We're committed to him. 24 hours later, he's benching him. We obviously know who probably started to meddle in those decisions, but you go from being like, hey, I know. And here's the thing. Like, we're 2 games in, right? 2 games in to the season where, this is a project year for Bryce Young. Canales is brought in to fix Bryce Young and get him up to where he needs to be as an NFL quarterback, like he's done with other guys in the past, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, that we've talked ad nauseum about. To give up on it 2 games in, it seems kind of counterintuitive because you feel like it's barely gotten off the ground. It's like, well, if you're trying to make this guy better, wouldn't you want to keep him out there and keep playing? But at the same time, he's so disastrously bad, then if you want any chance of winning, you have to put Andy Dalton out there.
But here's my thing. I think we talked about this, was it Monday, when this came out. This has this stink of David Tepper all over it.
Oh, by the way, who was lurking around practice today? David Tepper.
David Tepper. Lurking's the right word, too. He's a creepy dude.
See, he was slithering around practice.
Weirdo. He just has that look of that guy where you're like, who's in my bushes? So it just has the feeling of Tepper because nothing makes sense. Okay, Tyler, so in the preseason, you played Bryce Young 1 series against jobbers of the Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo Bills that are no longer Buffalo Bills.
Right. So if your plan was to, if you, first of all, I didn't agree with that strategy anyway. I think Bryce Young needs reps against everyone.
Remind me, what's the preseason for? Is it for player development?
And to get better.
And to get better.
And
what does Bryce need to do? Develop and get better. Weird concept, right?
And so you didn't play him. That means your goal is to now be patient with him during the season because you're not playing him in the preseason to prove anything.
Right.
He's not playing because he's your guy, right?
Right.
Because that's what happens in preseason. Hey, Carolina Panthers, take a quick listen here. I'm going to tell you a little something maybe you don't understand. When you don't play your guy in the preseason and he's your starter, that means you're planning to start him through a good portion of the year and be patient with him. David Canales, look, I don't know what he is as a head coach. I got no clue. I don't know if he's in over his head, if he's not. I got no idea. But here's what I do know. If you don't play your quarterback in the preseason, it means he's your guy. So after 2 weeks, no matter how horrid he's been, and Bryce Young, and that whole offense has been horrid, not just Bryce Young, you don't bench him in 2 weeks by what we saw in the preseason. That's why this got the smell of Tepper all over it. And by the way, who wanted to draft Bryce Young?
David Tepper, which is why, because I thought it probably would have been a good idea a year ago, because you already had Andy Dalton that you acquired in the offseason in 2023. Why not let him start the first handful of games, let Bryce watch, get acclimated, get up to speed on whatever needs to, and then allow him to become your starter and see what happens then. You threw him to the Wolves in week number 1, clearly in over his head, and it just persisted the entire season.
And the other part is, and look, I'm a huge fan of letting a quarterback sit and watch. Even in today's world, they get rookie contracts, the time starts ticking. I get all that mess. Why you want a rookie or a young quarterback on the cheap on the field because your salary cap. I still think a quarterback needs to sit. For every C.J. Stroud, there's a graveyard filled with dudes who got out there too soon, and it was a disaster.
Yeah.
And they could never come back from it. I'm zero issue with Bryce Young last year sitting and watching Andy Dalton. I think that was a David Tepper decision. Hey, he's first pick overall. We're paying him. This guy's not going to get paid to sit on the sideline.
Frank Wright wanted C.J. Stroud.
Right.
They could have gotten C.J. Stroud. Now, C.J. Stroud probably would be in a similar situation. I'm not saying he would have been doing the same things he's doing in Houston right now. I think whatever quarterback's there was doomed to fail. Mm-hmm. But you had a quarterback that the coach wasn't as keen on, and and then there's the fighting with Wright and Tepper, and like. There's a reason this organization's a disaster.
And C.J. Stroud would struggle in Carolina. I mean, look around.
Because doesn't have anyone around him.
Right. There's no help there. And that's the other part of this. You have basically, by benching Bryce Young, tell everybody it's Bryce Young's fault your offense stinks. Who else are you benching on your offense?
No one.
My two thoughts on this. One, I feel like right now, because this changed, sure. And just right now, I feel like the Panthers have broken Bryce Young. They've broken his confidence, his spirit, his soul, professionally. And for him to be successful, he needs to leave there and go to an organization that has a bright mind as an offensive coordinator or as a head coach who is an offensive-minded head coach to be able to fix Bryce Young. That's the way I feel watching this right now, because I feel like it doesn't even matter what Canales is. Because you've got that goober in the owner's box, and as long as you've got that guy, I don't think anything is ever successful in Carolina. That's just me.
No.
That's just the way I feel about it.
It starts from the top down, and as long as he's in charge, I don't think you're going to be anything of much relevance, unfortunately.
And unfortunately, Panther fans, you're stuck with him. And the second thing is, again, to the point of how much situation matters, Patrick Mahomes is on a historic road. Correct?
Yes.
People forget something. Coming out of college, it was a mixed bag on Patrick Mahomes. Too many off-platform throws. He's just this gunslinger. He's, not a good game manager because he's always like trying to force things. He doesn't play great in the pocket. Blah, blah. I mean, I can give you the list of stuff.
Yeah.
There were teams that would not draft Patrick Mahomes that high, would not take him. Plus, Texas Tech quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys never translate into the NFL. He went to the Kansas City Chiefs with a veteran quarterback who was going to put his arm around him and hug him, and Alex Smith, who had lived the hell that Patrick Mahomes is about to live. To a Hall of Fame offensive mind / quarterback guru / offensive coordinator / play caller / head coach in Andy Reid.
Correct.
That's what you got. And an organization that understood we have to have offensive linemen, we have to have receivers, we have to give this guy help.
He's got talent around him. Always has.
So Patrick Mahomes landed in a perfect spot. You know what he got to do the first year?
Sit and wait.
Sit and wait. We all forget this stuff right now.
Yeah. Well,
that was the dictionary definition, Tyler, of how you take care of a franchise quarterback that you draft in the first round.
He got to sit and wait, and you listen to any, Chiefs player talk about when Alex Smith was still starting, they're like, man, we started seeing Patrick doing things in practice like, oh, this guy's going to be good. And when he eventually took over, obviously the rest is history. Mm-hmm. So Bryce Young got thrown into the fire from day one where he clearly was not ready, and he suffered ever since. And I don't know if he goes somewhere and becomes more successful, but I'd love to see him in a Dolphins type of system where you have a coach that's willing to build around him and give him that positive reinforcement like with Tua to turn out to be something better.
So yeah, what a mess. Real quick, your boy Drake London is apologizing, which he should.
It was a T-shirt cannon. He was shooting T-shirts into the upper deck of the Link. That's all he was doing. That's it.
Yeah. Problem is, it looks like a real cannon or a real gun.
He should have done the loading of the T-shirt to imply that's what it was.
I will say this. Look, the Eagles, that was a textbook on how not to game manage at the end.
By the way, on the Let's Kiss the Eagles' Butts broadcast of Monday Night Football starring Jason Kelce, who has since apologized.
Well, the thing that gets lost in this is that London forced Koo, the kicker, to boot a 48-yard extra point.
Koo is one of the best kickers in the league. I was very thankful to have him at that point in time because anybody else would be like, oh, they're probably going to miss this, and this is going to go to overtime.
And by the way, really quick, on the Eagles, just run the ball. Quit trying to be smarter than everybody.
It's not that hard.
Run the ball. Run it twice. Run the ball. All right. Football in the 1 o'clock hour. We'll check out our Firehouse Sub text of the hour. That's next on the halftime show right here on the game. Tomorrow, 3 to 6, post-game show with Jay and Elijah at Columbia Craft, our tailgate show, Green Street in the Vista. Again, that's 3 to 6 with Jay and Elijah. 7 o'clock, Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show with Justin Hall and Elijah from 7 to 11. If it's going on in high school football, you'll be hearing about it on the Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show. Again, that starts at 7 Friday night right here on the game. Firehouse Sub text the hour at 803-404-6100. What do you got, man?
It's a long one from our friend Albert. I'll try and summarize it as best I can. It's basically saying he's a Panthers fan, that the issue is Young itself. I can't see over his offensive line because he says he's only 5'6", 5'7". He's actually 5'10". Mm-hmm. That's why he hasn't thrown any passes deep. His offensive line's actually okay, but the main problem is Bryce Young. See, I don't subscribe to the size thing as much anymore. I mean, he's the same size as Kyler Murray, and he's throwing bombs down the field left and right, in that Arizona offense. So the size, seeing over the offensive line, I think that's something that gets thrown out there too much casually, and I don't think that really has a bearing. Like, it's literally a lot more than that.
It's a lot more than that. Now, if you want to say Bryce Young's struggling, I mean, if you watch some of the tape or the highlights of Bryce Young, he's not jumping up to see over the offensive line, or he's not having an issue seeing over the offensive line. He's just having issues in general, whether it's processing the field, whether it's making the correct decision, whether it's throwing it accurately. He's having problems. So when we talk about all the issues in Carolina, no one's saying Bryce Young is blameless. He has legitimately struggled. But now he's got his fourth play caller in less than 2 years, third head coach in less than 2 years. Unfortunately, the same owner in less than 2 years. Different GM. So I'm not going to sit here and we're not saying Bryce Young is blameless, but we're saying you're not going to plug a quarterback in there and it's going to be a lot better because of the issues.
He is not in a situation where he can succeed easily.
No. And look, let's talk about this for a minute. Let's look at the lineage of quarterbacks we've seen run in and out of that place in the last 3 years. I mean, Baker Mayfield's doing okay in Tampa right now.
Yep.
Sam Darnold all of a sudden's a quarterback in Minnesota. They dusted off Cam Newton for a minute or two. It's been a wreck, and it's more than just one guy. And that's what we're trying to say. And if you want to think it's just one guy, that's fine. But the disease there, how many coaches are we going to talk about here over the last few years? Starting with Matt Rule, and then and all that, and then you went to Frank Reich for half a second, and then you had the interim situation, and now you've got David Canales. The thing has been a disaster, and it's not just Bryce Young. If you think Bryce Young is the sickness here, there's a lot more disease with the Carolina Panthers than Bryce Young.
If you took any high-level quarterback in the NFL and plugged him in there, even a Mahomes, he played well. But he wouldn't be the same Mahomes that he is in Kansas City.
Would he be better than Bryce Young? Yeah, but would he be Kansas City Mahomes? No. But you're right. Just pick a name out of the hat. Pick a name. Joe Burrow.
Sure. Josh Allen.
Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson. A young Aaron Rodgers. You put any quarterback in that pit of dysfunction, that cesspool of ridiculousness, they are not going to be as good as they are now. None of them. This is bigger than the quarterback. A lot bigger. Let's talk about all the great weapons right now that, Bryce Young's throwing to. You got a rookie first-round pick who's learning his way. You got a guy last year you took in the second round who's learning his way. You've got a slot receiver who is still okay, but his best days are behind him. You got a decent wide receiver from Pittsburgh, but I mean, his biggest problem is when you throw it to him, sometimes he drops it. So, what are we doing here? Are we just going to blame Bryce Young's problem? All of that is because of Bryce Young? No one's saying he's blameless. Yes, he's got to play better, and he's played badly. But it's more than just Bryce Young. There's a lot more to this problem in Carolina.
Yep.
We appreciate the text, like always, 803-404-6100 on the Firehouse Sub text line. We'll get back to some of South Carolina sound. Clayton White will talk about Akron's 2 QBs in what's trending at 2. Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. And look, I know Joe Moorhead, the head coach at Akron, is trying to do whatever he can do to generate offense at Akron. This 2 quarterback thing, though, it's just... Good luck.
If you were at a place with higher caliber QB talent, perhaps. It's not something that's probably built to work at Akron necessarily.
It's very difficult. I mean, if you have a quarterback who's clearly your number one, but you got a guy who you bring in for select packages. Remember when Florida had Chris Leak and they brought some dude named Tim Tebow in for select packages when they won the national title?
Yep.
That's one thing. But to sit and try to alternate your quarterbacks, like what Florida did last week, that was a fireable offense in itself.
Oh, it was god-awful.
With Mertz and Langway. What are you doing? Oh, anyway. All right. What's trending at 2? Coming up, Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry right here on the Halftime Show. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head hanging out here. 2 o'clock hour here on the show means what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. What is trending? First and foremost, South Carolina football, Gamecocks and Akron Zips. South Carolina still 28-point favorites for Saturday. We get everything cooking 2:30 with Gamecocks Game Day with Tyler and myself. Sponsored by LexMed Ortho. From the party lot at Sound and Images on Bluff, right across from Williams-Brice. We roll for 2 hours. Network pregame takes over. Then 7:30 kickoff. Gamecocks and Zips. All right, so we heard some dialogue, and it's getting back to Clayton White. Akron will play 2 quarterbacks a bunch, we think. We'll see. 2 guys coming in through the transfer portal in some way, shape, or form to Akron from either Virginia Tech or via way of NC State and Cal. And really, look, not to be mean, neither one scares the life out of you. Is that a nice way to put it?
Yeah, those were 2 guys. The reason they didn't stick at those schools is because they weren't, seen as starters at those places at least, or long-term solutions there. So they, made it to big-time programs and found an opportunity to have more of a featured role at a smaller school like Akron, and that's where they're at.
And that's okay. That's what the transfer portal is for. But
in fact,
again,
there's a lot of guys on this roster that kind of fit that same description.
And look, neither guy, again, has set the world on fire in his career, but you got 2 guys who started off in the power leagues and has now come to Akron in the MAC. So the hope is that at some point for Joe Moorhead in this season that one of them will kind of take the reins. But right now, it's a 2-quarterback deal. So let's hear Clayton White discussing Akron's 2 QBs.
Well, I mean, they have 2 different types of quarterbacks, kind of, very similar to what we had last year with Spencer and Lenoris. Obviously, give 2 different types of styles, but I think they're both tough. They're both respected. They both can make plays with their feet and their legs. I think they understand what Coach Moorhead is asking for in the offense and running it, and they do a good job of commanding the offense and being leadership, being good leaders.
So there's Clayton, obviously pumping up the Akron quarterback situation. It's a very clunky thing, and again, Joe Moorhead's just trying to do something to get his offense consistently ignited. They're near the bottom of the country in a lot of offensive numbers and metrics and things of that nature, and they struggle on both sides of the ball. The best unit they have is special teams. They're like in the top 60-ish in special teams, but they are. Again, it's a football team it's got its issues. It's 1-2, and it was down 17-0 to Colgate before storming back and beating Colgate last Saturday. And there's a reason why South Carolina is a 28-point favorite, just saying, in this football game. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. This just in. Quinn Ewers has an oblique injury. So the Texas starting quarterback will sit this one out on Saturday. Arch Manning will make his first start for number 1 Texas as they take on Louisiana Monroe. That's according to Steve Sarkisian. Quinn's not ready yet. And he's not 100%. So you will now play Arch Manning. And Arch Manning looked really good last week against Texas San Antonio. 4 touchdown passes and a 67-yard touchdown run or whatever it was. So Manning will take over against a team that he should put up more numbers against, to be quite honest, in University of Louisiana Monroe. So Quinn Ewers will sit it out. Arch Manning will take over. And if Manning has another big day, he might be in New York for the Heisman. It's right now, his odds of winning the Heisman is higher than Quinn Ewers. Interesting. Very interesting. Another little, this is one of those stories that becomes a story that shouldn't be a story, but since it's a story, we'll talk about it. C.J. Stroud of the Houston Texans went to midfield at the end of the Texans' victory over the Bears. Did the post-game handshake with Caleb Williams. and they had an interaction. Stroud was mic'd up during the Texans' win, and after the game, Stroud embraces Caleb Williams, and he says to Caleb, "Good job out there. Stop taking those hits, though." And Williams began to walk away, but Stroud pulled Williams back into the conversation and said, "Come here. Learn from those mistakes, and everything you got, bro, is in you already. You're going to be a hell of a player in this league." And, of course, people want to make something out of everything. And Stroud's like, "Oh, I wasn't trying to belittle him. I was trying to talk him up and help him." And that's what it sounded like if you heard it. It wasn't anything to, because there's that thing on social media, always little bro in him. I thought C.J. Stroud was like, "Look, man, just don't take those hits. Learn from your mistakes. You're going to be really, really good." I don't see anything wrong with that. But, of course, there's people who need to find something wrong with everything. And unfortunately, in the world we live in, it only takes a few people to make nothing of something. So C.J. Stroud's like, "Look, I'm just trying to give some advice or just trying to be supportive," which is what it sounded like to me. But anyway, here's another story. Detroit Lions head coach Dan Campbell is selling his home outside of Detroit in the suburbs of Detroit. I've never been there, but I've heard it's fantastic. As much as Detroit is the suburbs are supposed to be fantastic. Dan Campbell is selling his suburban home. Quote from Dan Campbell to Crane's Detroit Business: "There's plenty of space. It's on 2 acres. The home's beautiful. It's just that people have figured out where I live." Now, Campbell didn't say anything else, but Fox 2 in Detroit reported that Campbell's home address was leaked to the public, and he and his family had become the victim of pranks and harassment after tough line losses. Now, it's Bloomfield Township is where Campbell, he has been living until now he's going to sell his house. Bloomfield Township Police Department released a statement saying in part that, quote, it is committed to the safety of our residents. Harassment of any kind will not be tolerated. We hope that everyone, including fans, will respect the privacy of individuals and their families. Now, it's a 7,800 square foot house. Yeah, real small one. It posted for $4.5 million. And a deal was pending within 24 hours. I get when you take these gigs, any gig in the public eye, something comes with it. You lose some privacy in your life. You just do. You can't go to the movie theater. You can't go to a restaurant. You just can't go walk down the road with your wife or your girlfriend or your family or whatever. But that's part of the gig. That's part of people paying you a lot of money to do a high-profile job. I understand all that. And if you're in a restaurant eating because you're a high-profile player or coach or actor or singer, and you're making gobs of money doing something that you really shouldn't be making gobs of money doing, but in our world, that's just the way it works in a free enterprise system, I don't pity you. Because that's unfortunately the bad side of that. Now, sometimes can people be rude and annoying? Sure. If you're standing in the bathroom trying to handle your business, a guy comes to your next to you, "Man, I love your movie." Hey, bub, this isn't the time. Back it up. But when people start invading your home with harassment and pranks and start messing with your home, that's a different ballgame. That's over that line. And I feel bad for Dan. First of all, I like Dan Campbell. I really do. And I feel bad that Dan Campbell's address got leaked out and now people are being Richards.
Okay. By the way, on a short list of guys I wouldn't want to mess with, Dan Campbell's one of them. This dude's like, 6'6", and takes in enough caffeine per day to kill a small horse.
And by the way, and I was going to get to that. It was the last part of this. Riff was like, and by the way, why the heck would you mess with that dude's house?
I wouldn't want to make that guy angry.
By the way, if you look at him, he's still yoked.
But by the way, if you try and run, he's going to catch you.
Yes, he is not like you see a lot of coaches as they start coaching because you're putting in 27-hour days. I get it. Sometimes physical fitness and physical care kind of starts going by the side, right?
Yeah.
Dan Campbell's not to that point yet. I guarantee you Dan Campbell still pops in the weight room.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, if you go and egg Bill Belichick's house, I don't think he's going to come chase you with a tire iron.
Yeah, exactly.
But Dan Campbell might rip you apart with his hands.
Dan Campbell, by the way, reaching into your chest and pulling out your heart. That's the guy you don't want to mess with.
And then biting your kneecap.
Yes. So, first of all, it's you've crossed the line. You really have. That's crossing the line. And two, that is not the way you want to die.
No.
Messing with that guy's house. Not the. I tell you, there was a story like Rex Ryan back in the day. He was an assistant coach in Baltimore, defensive coordinator, and I remember he had an issue with a neighbor, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing. And it was just a personal issue, and Rex went to the guy's house, knocked on the door. Rex was ready to throw hands. Rex, we used to have Rex on the show every week back in the day.
Yeah.
When he was just an assistant coach. Rex was phenomenal back then on the mic. And yeah, Rex is going to go to the house and throw some hands on somebody. He was going to go old school, my neighborhood on a guy.
Hey.
So
If you say something about somebody, you better be ready to own up to it.
Well, my thing is why are you messing around with Rex Ryan?
I wouldn't mess around with any of the Ryans.
Yeah.
Buddy, Rob, Rex.
Yeah. I mean,
Matt.
what are you doing? Meg?
One of these is not like the other.
Meg Ryan?
Yeah, none of them.
I mean, don't mess with the Ryans. But, I mean, there's certain people, no. And Dan Campbell would be in that category of no. Now, wasn't there one about Keyshawn Johnson going after Justin Bieber or something, or Justin Bieber over Justin Bieber's property?
What?
Something happened.
Hold on, I
with
gotta look
Bieber.
this up.
Got to look it up. I can't remember. I think it was Keyshawn and Justin Bieber, because Bieber lived in Keyshawn's neighborhood or something.
Okay.
And Keyshawn's another guy. I mean, not to the level of Dan Campbell or even Rex Ryan, but Keyshawn's a pretty big dude.
Justin Bieber confronted by former NFL star for speeding in neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Okay. I did not know this was a thing.
Again, Keyshawn was a pretty big human being when he played in the NFL.
Still a pretty big guy.
And he might not be, he might not be Dan Campbell crazy or Rex Ryan crazy or Meg Ryan crazy, but still, he's a big dude who played in the NFL. You're Justin Bleepin' Bieber. Come on, man.
That almost seems like one of those Mad Libs, right? Where like two people whose worlds you would never think are going to intersect. Like former NFL star Keyshawn Johnson confronts Justin Bieber about speeding in Ferrari in neighborhood. Sure, why not?
Oh, man. So that's what's trending at 2, sponsored by... We'll come back with another segment of what's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. We'll get back to Dow Loggins. Talking about the third down struggles. Tyler's got some numbers on the third down struggles as well. It's a thing. So we'll get to that next. And Pete Thamel on Tennessee's talent fee. That's coming up on what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Don't forget this afternoon, 3 to 6, CHW Cabinetry in Lexington. Post-game show with Jay and Elijah and special guest Jen Jensen. All hanging out together from 3 to 6 in Lexington. And we will be at Hardee's from 3 to 6, Veterans Road in Columbia. Just reminding you about the Hardee's Roundup program to benefit the Harvest Hope Food Bank for students. All that's coming up. All right, we'll continue on with what's trending at 2. Hear from Dow Loggins and Pete Thamel from ESPN. That is next on the Halftime Show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head on The Game. What's trending at 2 here on the Halftime Show? Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. All right, so last night in Major League Baseball, 2 teams will basically clinch playoff spots, Yankees and Brewers. And God love the Brewers. I just don't know how they do it. They just keep doing it. That organization, I mean, they lost their GM, they lost the manager, and they just keep cooking. It's just, they've got a template, and they follow it. So Brewers are in, Yankees are in with their $7 billion payroll. But what happened last night in the Yankee game with the Mariners, Julio Rodriguez, I wish I would have told you to pull the highlight, Tyler. It's my bad.
Okay.
Julio Rodriguez is on third base in extra innings. Randy Arozarena at the plate for Seattle. Swings, misses, and the bat goes flying down the third baseline. Julio Rodriguez has his lead at third, and he ducks the bat. And he goes toward the third base coaching box and toward the dugout and away from the bag at third.
Right.
And he just keeps going. And he just kind of stops for a minute and just kind of like standing there, I guess thinking that his life just flashed before his eyes because a bat was coming at him.
Yeah.
Not realizing, guess what? He's in play. There has been no stoppage of play here. So the Yankees very smartly throw the ball to third. Rodriguez is tagged out. Seattle goes on to lose in extra innings because, again, that was the tying run at third.
Yep.
And Rodriguez, it was just a brain cramp. Even after the game, he's like, I'm not going to lie to you. I wasn't thinking about getting back to third. I was thinking, oh, my God, a bat was coming at me.
That kind of resets your priorities for a moment.
Exactly. My man made a business decision. But, again, it's just that lack of a moment where you brain cramp, and you got to understand that you got to get back to the bag. You just have to get back to the bag. And that wasn't the only reason Seattle lost, but it cost them huge in extra innings with a huge brain cramp last night. And by the way, the night before, Victor Robles of the Mariners decided it was a really good idea with the bases loaded, nobody out, to try to steal home. That didn't go well. And again, these things, first of all, that was just not very smart baseball. Robles was like 25 for 25 stealing bags since he was a Mariner, obviously feeling like he's invincible. He was halfway down the line. Pitcher wasn't really paying attention to him, so he decided to take off. One thing he forgot. It's only 60 feet 6 inches from the mound to home, and typically pitchers can throw the ball to home plate at a high velocity.
It's a classic case of flying too close to the sun.
Yes, and guess who got burned? But what this shows in 2 days really is and maybe it's unfair, but it's just what you see, there's a lack of baseball IQ in those 2 moments. And then you look at, well, that's a Mariner team that blew a 10-game lead early in the season when they were in first place. That has their manager fired. And maybe there's something where, I don't know, maybe we need some classes in Baseball 101 in the offseason in Seattle. Just saying. All right, let's get back to Dow Loggins talking to the media yesterday, the Gamecock offensive coordinator. All right, South Carolina offensively, there are things that have to get better. Even though the offense is improving each week. And Tyler did a nice deep dive on the article in The Athletic about explosive plays. South Carolina hasn't had a lot of explosive plays this year. They're near the bottom of the country in explosive plays, or bottom of the SEC in explosive plays.
Bottom of the SEC, and their margin is just about even in terms of what they generate and what they give up.
And first down, we've gone over this. One of our big stats this year is success rate on first down, which is basically, can you gain 5 yards or more on first down? Right now, South Carolina's success rate's around 25%, 25 to 26%. Well, it ticked up a little bit. It was 34% against LSU.
Yep.
So they're probably in the high 20s now, and you want to get that better. Mm-hmm. Third down conversion, what are they averaging again?
So their third down conversions are 27%, which is 122nd in the nation.
And they're averaging a 3rd and 8, I do believe,
third and 9.
3rd and 9.
Through 3 games so far this season.
So basically, you're averaging a 3rd and long on third down, which is not good. And you're not converting third down, and one of the reasons is you're averaging 3rd and 9.
Yes.
So first down and third down have to get better, and explosive plays have to get better.
Right.
And those are big metrics. And we went over the yards before contact in the run game. Again, it got better against the LSU defense, but you'd like to get yourself at least over 2 yards before contact on average. And right now, still not quite over that hump.
Right.
So there are things on this offense that have to get better. Dow Loggins yesterday talked about the struggles on third down.
Any other bad stats you want to bring up right now and talk about? Yeah, thanks. It's a combination of everything. It's making sure that we're getting the right depths. It's making sure that we're in the right spots with the wide receivers. It's some of these wide receivers in the group separating themselves. That's a big part of it as well. It's the quarterback. Most time, what happens, and you look at the NFL for the last 20 years, and you look at those. We used to study the top 5 third down offenses every year. It was always the top 5 quarterbacks. So when you're saying, hey, where's Lenore's development at? You see it coming. I think the second part is start taking the ball a little bit better. The third down stuff will start to come with protection and everyone doing their jobs that way. We're played 2 SEC opponents that are pretty good on defense as well, and so those have been great challenges. But I think it's all of us. I mean, it's a great question. It's a very, very fair question. an area we need to improve on. Even against Kentucky in the game we won, there's some there's some junk third downs at the end of the game, but we also hit some big plays on some third downs that help us. Led to the score. So definitely an area we have to improve on. It's not just one person, it's everything. We're making sure that, hey, are we calling the right plays to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands fast enough? Are we getting our best guys in space? Are we doing, while wide receiver group is trying to develop and emerge, are we doing enough with our tight ends and running backs that way as well? So we're looking at every aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Al in the beginning. Any other bad stats you want to bring up? Oh, third down. Thank you. Look, it's all that stuff. On third down, it's a combination of things. It's obviously pass protection if you're sitting at third and long. Quarterback reading the field, getting rid of the ball, making the right decision, being accurate. Wide receivers getting open, getting separation. But the best thing is don't be sitting at 3rd and 9. 3rd and 3 and 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2. Be more manageable. Get ahead of the sticks. And that goes to our first down issue that we've been talking about.
It does. And when you look at what this offense is good at, which is running the football, and they would do that 70% of the time, you're in a more advantageous situation being in the 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3 because you have a wealth of run plays that can get you a couple yards, even with, some questions on the offensive line when it comes to run blocking. South Carolina quarterbacks, this includes Lenore Sellers and Robbie Ashford, because Ashford has gotten to play quite a bit, are only completing 50% of their passes on third downs. And for Sellers specifically, he's only completing 50% of his throws 10 yards or more down the field. So you're literally putting them in a tough spot at things they are not good at, but putting them in 3rd and 9s consistently.
I mean, if you're running the ball 70% of the time and you're putting yourself in third and passing situations where a lot of your playbook is closed off, that's not really the way to operate.
Also, as well, Carolina quarterbacks have been sacked 13 times this year. 7 of those have come on third downs.
And when you're averaging 3rd and 9.
Yep.
All right, Pete Thamel from ESPN. Tennessee, you know by now what Tennessee's doing with tickets, adding a fee to it. It's basically an NIL fee and paying players' fee. And here's Pete Thamel from ESPN talking about this Tennessee talent fee that's now being hooked to ticket prices.
Well, my phone blew up a little bit today, Kevin, and I would just think about it this way. Instead of you paying your real estate tax this April, what if you pay to sit on your couch and watch the Eagles tax, right? Or maybe Elle pays to sit on her couch and watch the Georgia Bulldogs tax. This is some very clever marketing by Danny White, the athletic director at Tennessee. Remember when he was at UCF and he claimed a national title? He knows how to draw attention. And this is very simply a ticket hike, under the guise of a new era in college sports. Obviously, with the revenue share expected to come next fall, everybody needs more money, 25 to 30 million. This will get Tennessee probably 8 to 10 million when they do it. And look, it's easy to do this, Kevin, when you are sold out completely. Mm-hmm. Your team's in the top 10 and rolling, and you could just call it a Nico Ameleava tax.
Yeah.
It's so good. Look, this is when you do it. You strike when the iron's hot, when there's a demand for your tickets, when you're selling out, when you got a waiting list. Because you look at people and go, if you don't want to do it, there's a line of people who will do it.
Yeah, if you're trying this down in Gainesville, Florida right now, people are going to say, blank you, try something else.
Yeah, probably not working.
No.
Just guessing, just saying, probably not working right now. So there's certain places you couldn't do it. But right now at Tennessee, with the perfect storm of what's going on with volunteer football, you can do it. Heck, if South Carolina pulled off an 8-9 win season this year and everybody's giddy and happy, guess what? Probably do something like this. Yeah. I mean, in the NFL, this personal seat license is the biggest scam in sports in the NFL.
You start turning in the wrong direction, people are going to say, well, my money, why are you not getting the right amount of talent?
Well, that goes with all this. This goes with the way people look at college players. Now, well, I can boo a college player. Now he's getting paid. Well, I don't have to be as sensitive.
I am paying his salary.
Yeah, and that's where this is going to go as well. So there's a positive to getting paid, and there's a negative to getting paid. And that's the same thing goes with if you're going to charge extra money for tickets, you better sure not be 4 and 8.
Yep.
All right, that's what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Wow, was it September 19th?
Correct.
Greatest day in the history of the world. That's next on the halftime show right here on the game. Greatest day in the history of the world, September 19th. Terry Ford Tyler Head hanging out with you here on the game. All right, so old school is kind of like the regurgitation of horse racing or U.S. Open tennis.
I was gonna say what I've gathered from our doing this, doing the oldest one first, is the only thing happening in the 1800s were horse racing, golf, and really obscure things in baseball.
And a little boxing, bare knuckle boxing.
Yeah. Well, there no gloves. You just literally went knuckle to knuckle.
But a man did, and the fights were 72 rounds.
Exactly, and they did it in a gravel parking lot.
Right. So I skipped all the way down to 1951.
Okay.
I mean, we had one from 1925. Again, it was tennis. We had a horse race, and we had tennis. In 1951, on this day, the greatest day in the history of the world, September 19th, Ford Frick, who was the president of the National League, is elected commissioner by the team owners. The interesting thing about Ford Frick, get this. All right, he was, again, National League. There used to be presidents for both leagues. American League president, National League president, you had a commissioner. Now you don't have presidents for both leagues anymore. Ford Frick, though, not only was an executive in baseball, but he was also a teacher and a sports writer before he got into being a public relations director for the National League and then became league president for like 17 years and was commissioner for 14. But here's a guy that started off, dude was a teacher and then became a sports writer, and all of a sudden, years down the road, he's commissioner of baseball.
That looked pretty funny on a resume.
Mm-hmm. So you were a teacher. What were you teaching? Because, I started off, I worked for a company right out of college that made engines for windmills. Years later, he's the commissioner of baseball. Very interesting little life for Ford Frick. Just saying. And he was elected this day in 1951 as the president or the commissioner of baseball. All right, now in times where there's black and white TV, where there wasn't black and white TVs, color TVs, there's the internet, there's cable. 2017. A new Major League Baseball record for most home runs hit in a season was broken. Alex Gordon of the Royals hit a bomb. 5,694 home runs in 2017. That's when the launch angle era took off in baseball.
So they're playing with the juice balls.
Yeah, always. Whenever there's a lot of home runs, there's juice balls. I'll be honest with you, I shouldn't say this out loud. If I'm baseball right now, I'm juicing me some baseballs.
Well, that was it earlier on this year where they weren't hitting enough home runs, and it was like, well, the league is trying to get the dead balls out of there to up home runs again.
Yeah, because again, sports is about getting the audience of the casual fan. A lot of boring games with very little runs does not entice the casual fan. Do you
remember in the original Anchorman movie when Champ Kind creates his sports highlights and he says the only thing we're showing is home runs, touchdowns, and dunks?
Yeah,
basically that.
It's exactly. On this day in 2009, Texas College, an NAIA school, is whooped by Texas Southern 75-6. Now keep the math in your head.
Okay.
Week before, they got beat by Stephen F. Austin 92-0. So they got better.
A little bit.
So basically, they were outscored 167-6 in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They were outscored. Ready? They eventually fell to 0-4 and were outscored 300-12.
Do you fire your OC after that? Or DC?
Everybody. On this day in 2004, Jerry Rice's run of 2,074 straight games with a catch ended as the Raiders beat the Bills 13-10. The last time Rice didn't catch a pass was 1985.
That's
against
insane.
Washington. Look, Randy Moss was a filthy freak of nature. But Jerry Rice, the best receiver I ever saw in my lifetime. He was unbelievable. Especially his prime. Unstoppable. Uncoverable. This day in 2008, Greg Maddux pitches his 5,000th career inning against the San Francisco Giants. And in 2000, Ken Griffey Jr. pinch hits and cracks his 400th career home run, becoming the first major leaguer to reach that milestone as a pinch hitter. Just a shame what injuries did to Ken Griffey Jr.'s career. If Ken Griffey Jr. stays healthy, there's a really good chance he's your all-time home run leader.
He's on track for it, certainly.
He was the best player in baseball before the injuries. I mean, defensively, he was unbelievable in center field. Hit for power, hit for average. He walked. He could run the bags. Before the injuries took their toll, Ken Griffey Jr. was unreal. And he wore his hat backwards. You want to talk about a controversy that was stupid? Because, again, we all wore a hat backwards.
Of course.
That guy's still throwing a hat backwards every now and then. But that was so disrespectful that he took batting practice with his hat on backwards.
We know baseball is a game that detrimentally sticks more to tradition than anything else. So, yes, some punk kid coming along, thinking he can disrespect the game by wearing his hat backwards. I imagine there was a lot of pearl clutching at that point in time.
Oh, it was craziness how people were screaming about Ken Griffey Jr. wearing his hat backwards. It was like, really? That's what we're doing? Okay.
And now, I mean, look at what we have in baseball now.
Oh, it's a travesty.
Which look, I don't have a problem with it. No. Chains and home run trots and bat pimping and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, look, I've said this before. If you don't run to the mound and do the suck it sign to the pitcher after you hit a home run, if you hit a home run and you watch it because you just hit a 450-foot bazooka, I got zero problem with that. Even after you hit that 450-foot bazooka, you want to flip the bat in the air before you leave the batter's box, I got no problem with that either. If a pitcher's mad and angry,
don't give up the home run.
Don't give up the home run.
Your job is to throw the ball where I cannot hit it.
Yes, and when I do hit it a long way.
You did not do that well enough, and I hit it a long way.
When I hit a dude in a canoe in McCovey Cove, I'm pimping.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to cartwheel around the bases. I'm going to kiss your girlfriend in the stands, and I'm going to key your car on the way out.
Yes. And, I can because I just hit a 450-foot bomb into McCovey Cove.
Exactly.
That's me. All right, last one, 1988. If you've ever seen this video or this highlight, or maybe you saw it, it's painful. 1988. One of the greatest divers in the history of diving, maybe the greatest, Greg Louganis, in 1988, hit his head on a diving board at the Seoul Olympics. He hit his head on the board on his 9th dive. He had to have 4 temporary stitches put in the top of his head so he could come back and finish his last 2 dives. Less than 30 minutes later, you ready for this? He completes a reverse 1.5 somersault and a 3.5 twist in the final round, a reverse 3.5 somersault tuck position, and secures a place in the medal round. With a busted head.
That's pretty impressive.
If you ever, and watching it, you have to go get stitches when you watched it. It was ridiculous. Ridiculous. All right, greatest day in the history of the world. Like always, every day at this time on the Halftime Show. Firehouse Sub Taxi Hour coming up at 803-404-6100. Number Jay and Elijah out at CHW Cabinetry in Lexington. We'll be out at Hardee's also at the same time, reminding you about the Hardee's Roundup. All that's coming up between 3 to 6. And again, next, our Firehouse Sub Taxi Hour at 803-404-6100 is the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. I just saw Ed Bird, who's gonna run the entire ship, coming up at 3 o'clock right here on the game.
Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you here. A couple of minutes, Terry Ford hitting the road as he is heading out to the Hardys at 120 Veterans Road in Columbia for the Hardys Roundup. You can go by and see him from 3 until 6 today. And again, Jay and Elijah going to be out at CHW Cabinetry here in just a couple moments for the postgame show at 1819 Two Notch Road out there in Lexington. It is time for our Firehouse Subs text of the hour, 803-404-6100. Nameless texter weighs in and asks the question of why we are always on David Tepper whenever we end up talking about the Carolina Panthers. And we have pretty consistently, been very critical of what David Tepper has done as an owner. And Tepper is recognized not only across the NFL, but across most sports in America as one of the worst owners in all of sports. In fact, just a little while ago, I was scrolling through Twitter and I saw this article from Awful Announcing. David Sampson, who is a former team president of the Miami Marlins, who in their own right have been criticized as one of the poorer run organizations, not only in baseball, but of all of sports, even took a shot at David Tepper recently, saying David Tepper is firing coaches because he is the most meddling owner. He has finally made our ownership group look so good, which is, how hard is that? So even, people involved with other sports are well aware of how poorly David Tepper has run things since being the owner of the Carolina Panthers, and the numbers speaks for themselves. He took over ownership in 2018, and the Jerry Richardson thing, it led to the sale of the team, and David Tepper wanted the opportunity to be a full owner of a team after being a part of the ownership group with the Pittsburgh Steelers, took that opportunity to buy the Panthers, and since then they have been one of the worst franchises in all the NFL. And one thing that sticks out is his inability to hang on to coaches, as just mentioned there with David Sampson on his spot on the Rich Eisen show. You had Ron Rivera that was there in 2018. By the way, they were fresh off of making the playoffs the year before at 11-5. In 2017, Panthers were 11-5, made the playoffs and lost the wild card. They had made the playoffs in 4 of the previous 5 seasons, including that run to the Super Bowl back in 2015. The following year in 2019, they end up, letting Ron Rivera go. And if you remember, that was the weird situation where they were firing Ron Rivera, but still had him do like a press conference, which I always thought was strange because, of course, he was in no mood to talk to the media after that. So that was weird. You bring in Matt Rule, somebody that had never been an NFL head coach before. And yes, he had done a really good job building back the Baylor program after the Art Briles stuff had happened there. But it was very clear that Rule was in over his head. He ends up getting fired not a full 3 years into it. And Steve Wilkes did a pretty decent job down the stretch of keeping that team together and closing out the 2022 season. They end up not hiring Steve Wilkes. They go out there, they get Frank Wright, who had been fired by the Colts. And it was very clear that David Tepper and Frank Wright were just butting heads constantly, even down to who they're going to draft at quarterback between Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. And then he doesn't even give him the full season. You go out there and get Dave Canales, who was brought in to fix Bryce Young. And now, like we talked about a little bit earlier, you have a coach in Canales that after their loss on Sunday says, okay, well, we're still committed to Bryce Young being our guy because you're only 2 games into the season. I've just only really started getting to work with him in an actual in-season scenario. And then 24 hours later, he's saying something different. And all the indications are from inside the building that Dave Tepper said, we're going to make a change. We're going to go with Andy Dalton at quarterback. So the reason, and we're not picking on him necessarily, but the reason we talk about David Tepper so negatively is because he's constantly doing these things to put himself in the negative spotlight. We go back to last year, before the Panthers are playing a game, I think it was draft night. And that restaurant in Charlotte had the sign out front that said, hey, let somebody else make the pick, the head coach or the GM or whatever. And David Tepper, driving by it, was so personally offended by that, he comes in to the restaurant and confronts the people. You know what I mean? Like, he has no self-awareness from what it seems like. He is not aware of how poor of a job he has done running this organization. And personally, I would love to talk about the Panthers in a positive way. They're the closest NFL team that we have here. And when they're successful, that gives us more reason to talk about them. But unfortunately, as you've seen these past couple years, they have been at the bottom of the NFL in most everything. And there's really no sign of them getting better. And it's crazy because Tepper comes from one of the most well-run organizations, not only in the NFL and all of sports, by being a part owner in the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he should have seen the blueprint for exactly how an NFL team needs to be run. And I don't remember what the consensus for Panthers fans was when he ends up taking over, but I imagine there were a lot of people that felt good about it, saying, hey, man, this guy comes from the Steelers organization. We should be good with him to build build the Panthers into something, or continue to have the Panthers be one of the better teams in the NFL and regularly competing for the NFC South title. And it just hasn't happened that way. It's very clear he does not know what he's doing compared to other owners in the NFL to how to run those organizations effectively where they can be successful in a winning organization. And again, that's why we talk about him so negatively, because he's constantly in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. That'll do it for today's edition of the Halftime Show. Again, Jay and Elijah broadcasting live out at CHW Cabinetry in Lexington. Coming up next from 3 until 6 for the postgame show here on your Thursday on the Game.